The conflict between the United States and Iran has entered a far more dangerous stage, drawing in global powers, destabilizing energy markets, and threatening to ignite a wider regional war. What began as a direct confrontation between Washington and Tehran is now rippling across the Middle East, Europe, and beyond. At the center of the storm is Donald Trump, whose decisions and rhetoric have triggered intense international backlash and uncertainty among allies. Middle East on the brink. The war's immediate consequences are being felt across the Persian Gulf. Major oil-producing states, including Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Qatar have confirmed partial or full shutdowns of oil production amid fears of Iranian retaliation and infrastructure attacks. Compounding the crisis, the strategic waterway known as the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply normally passes, remains effectively closed. Shipping disruptions have sent shockwaves through global energy markets and raised fears of soaring fuel prices worldwide. Meanwhile, the conflict has intensified inside Iran itself. U.S. and Israeli strikes have reportedly targeted oil depots and military infrastructure in cities across the country. Images emerging from Iranian urban centers show fires, smoke, and burning oil spilling through damaged infrastructure scenes that observers say resemble Armageddon. But Iran has not remained silent. Iranian forces have launched retaliatory strikes on American military installations in the region and targeted government facilities in Kuwait, escalating the risk of a full-scale regional war. Trump claims victory amid escalation. Despite the escalating violence, Trump has publicly declared that Iran has already surrendered. Posting on social media, the U.S. president claimed that Tehran had thanked him and conceded defeat, assertions widely disputed by analysts and foreign officials. Critics argue that such statements contradict the reality on the ground, where Iran continues to launch retaliatory attacks and mobilize support from allied powers. Trump's comments have also sparked controversy because of his dismissive attitude toward traditional U.S. allies. Clash with the United Kingdom. Trump recently criticized Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, after reports that Britain might deploy aircraft carriers to the Middle East. Rather than welcoming the potential support, Trump mocked the move as unnecessary and too late. In interviews, he went even further, stating that he could not care less whether American allies joined the conflict. The remarks shocked diplomats and defense officials who fear that such rhetoric could fracture long-standing alliances at a time of global instability. Europe steps in. While Washington's relationship with some allies appears strained, European leaders are attempting to prevent the conflict from spreading. Emmanuel Macron, president of France, has been working with Middle Eastern leaders to stabilize the situation. Macron recently emphasized France's commitment to protecting regional security and preventing the war from engulfing the entire Middle East. He also reaffirmed European support for Ukraine, warning that the crisis in Iran should not distract from the ongoing war with Russia. Russia and China enter the equation. The geopolitical stakes have grown even higher, with reports that Vladimir Putin's Russia is providing intelligence support to Iran. Ukrainian officials claim that Moscow may be assisting Tehran with targeting information for attacks against American forces. At the same time, Russia has intensified its assault on Ukraine, launching major ballistic missile strikes on cities such as Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reported dozens of missiles and hundreds of drones used in recent attacks, resulting in civilian casualties and widespread destruction. According to Kyiv, Moscow is exploiting the Middle East crisis to divert global attention away from the war in Ukraine. China's role has also raised concerns. Analysts believe Beijing is providing indirect support to Iran while carefully avoiding direct confrontation with Washington. Kurdish and Turkish tensions. Another complicating factor is the Kurdish question. The government of Turkey has strongly opposed any attempt by the United States to involve Kurdish forces in the Iran conflict. At the same time, some Kurdish groups have expressed deep skepticism about American intentions, citing past experiences in Syria where Kurdish fighters felt abandoned after supporting U.S. operations. A new global flashpoint. The crisis has created a volatile geopolitical landscape in which multiple conflicts are intersecting. War between the United States and Iran, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, growing tensions among NATO allies, disruptions to global energy markets. Each development increases the risk that the situation could spiral into a broader international confrontation. For critics of Trump's policies, the conflict represents a collapse of diplomatic norms and alliances that once defined U.S. leadership. Supporters, however, argue that strong military action is necessary to counter Iran's influence in the region. What remains clear is that the war has already reshaped global politics, and its consequences may reverberate far beyond the Middle East. Global turmoil deepens as Trump's Iran war triggers political, economic, and security crises. The war between the United States and Iran has rapidly evolved into one of the most dangerous geopolitical crises in decades. What began as military strikes has now triggered cascading consequences across global politics, energy markets, and international alliances. At the center of the storm is U.S. effort to involve Kurdish fighters in operations against Iran. Ankara fears that empowering Kurdish groups could strengthen Kurdish independence movements that Turkey considers a major security threat. At the same time, Kurdish leaders remain deeply skeptical of U.S. intentions, citing past experiences in Syria where Kurdish fighters felt abandoned after supporting American operations against ISIS. Humanitarian and civilian consequences. Beyond geopolitics, the war is producing devastating humanitarian consequences. Reports from inside Iran describe large fires, destroyed infrastructure, and oil depots burning across multiple cities. Civilians have been caught in the crossfire as strikes hit industrial zones and critical infrastructure. Meanwhile, missile attacks in Ukraine continue to kill civilians, including children, as Russia escalates its bombardment. Humanitarian organizations warn that the combined conflicts could create massive refugee flows across the Middle East and Europe, severe shortages of food and fuel, long-term regional instability, rising anti-American sentiment. The war has also fueled growing anger toward the United States across parts of the Middle East. In Iraq's parliament, lawmakers reportedly chanted "Death to America," reflecting deepening hostility toward Washington's actions. Regional leaders fear the conflict could strengthen extremist groups and trigger widespread anti-American protests. China's quiet role. While the United States confronts Iran militarily, China has largely remained publicly cautious, but is believed to be quietly supporting Tehran through economic and logistical channels. Analysts say Beijing is attempting to benefit strategically from the crisis while avoiding direct confrontation with Washington. Trump, meanwhile, has avoided strongly criticizing China during the conflict, a decision that some critics believe reflects broader diplomatic calculations. Domestic political backlash in the United States. At home, Trump's war strategy has sparked fierce political debate. Opponents argue that the administration has dragged the United States into a major war without congressional authorization. Others worry that escalating conflicts across multiple regions could overstretch the U.S. military. Supporters, however, argue that confronting Iran is necessary to prevent Tehran from dominating the Middle East and threatening American allies. A world entering a dangerous era. Taken together, these crises are creating a geopolitical environment many analysts describe as the most unstable since the Cold War. Multiple conflicts are now interconnected. The U.S.-Iran war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, rising tensions between NATO and authoritarian powers, global economic instability. Whether the situation escalates into an even larger international confrontation will depend on decisions made in the coming weeks by world leaders from Washington to Moscow to Tehran. For now, the world watches anxiously as the conflict continues to unfold.